Hello guys, Gabriel from Serial Killers. We got Ed Peach here to talk about Civilization 6. And yeah, we got to play the game like an hour or so. And we're gonna start with some questions. So, first of all, what did you change from Civilization 5 to 6?
I think the key thing that we changed from Civilization 5 to 6 was we wanted there to be a lot of possible ways to play the game so that you had different paths to success. It wasn't always the same strategy wasn't going to work every time. In Civilization 5, people found that if they build their empire to about 4 or 5 cities, don't go bigger than that, that they push science very, very hard and go right for a national college or great library and a couple of those other things, that was like a dominant strategy and would win every single game, and they could count on being able to do that, in most cases, unless maybe they're playing a very high difficulty. We just wanted people to have to think more. People got into patterns, they would play the game over and over again, but they'd sort of go through the tech tree in the same path. We wanted to change that right from the very beginning. And there are 2 ways that we did that. One was, if we make the map more important and certain things have to be present on the map for you to take a certain path, then based on the fact that every game is a random map every time, you're not going to be able to play the same way. If you love to build the pyramids and that's your dominant strategy, and now in Civ 6 you're only allowed to build the pyramids if you have a desert nearby, you can't get the pyramids every game. You might be able to get them a lot of the time, but not every single game. If we add more requirements like that, like building things near mountains is good for science or for religion. You might not always have mountains every time, so you have to think on your feet more, react to the map situation. The other thing we did is we made it so that your path through the technology tree is based on these boosts. Boosts aren't absolutely required to get a technology, but they give you 50% of the cost of technology. They get them much more easily, and you progress much faster if you can get some of the boosts. And not all the boosts are available every time. There's like masonry requires you to set up a quarry, and sometimes you don't have stone nearby. Other ones require you to set up a mine, and you might not have copper or iron or whatever nearby. I think that's the big thing we changed about the gameplay for Civilization 6. And what's fun is Civilization 5 already had a lot of different ways to play it for different victory types and for different leaders and civilizations. We kept all that in Civilization 6, but now you also have to come up with a new strategy every time.
Can you go into detail with the graphical changes from 5 to 6?
Yep. In terms of the graphics, the big change you have to realize is outside the city in Civilization 5, you had lots of farms, a pretty good number of mines and trading posts, and then you had maybe 3 or 4 other improvements that you would see, the camp, plantation, those kind of things, and that was about it. It was there were big patterns of what you would see outside the city. You see large blocks of farms, large blocks of trading posts, and so it's pretty easy to understand what was on the tile. You didn't have to remember as many things. Now with Civilization 6, we knew we wanted to make the map more important also by moving buildings outside the cities and putting them in districts. And every single district can have 1, 2, or 3 buildings on it. Each of those buildings can be finished or under construction or pillaged. And so there's just like a lot of information that has to go on every single tile for you to be able to understand what was going on. So we told this to our art team, and they're like, we think maybe a simpler approach and using some more color and things like that would be a good way to go. We wanted to make it also so you could zoom out and still see what's what on the map. So I think that's sort of where they started with their art style, and they decided that it was working for gameplay, and they were just going to use that across the board. The style of the leaders, everything we think is pretty consistent.
Okay. What can you tell us at the moment for the plans for the leaders in Civilization 6?
The big change for the leaders is that they each have an agenda that's tied to them based on history and what happened to them in history. So, for instance, the Emperor Qin, the leader of China, is famous for having built the terracotta army and started the Great Wall of China. So he's obviously a leader who loves to build big wonders and get big building projects, and even if it takes all of his peasants and workers to do that, he'll make sure that gets done. So that's how he plays the game. He wants to build more wonders than anyone else. If you build more wonders than he does, he gets insulted by that, and he might go to war over that. So every leader has an agenda like that, and that also means that as you meet leaders and see where they are, there are interesting games you can play with them. For instance, Teddy Roosevelt, American leader, doesn't like anyone disturbing the peace on his continent. So if you can see that there's another civ nearby that you could get to attack a city-state or someone else on the continent, you can know that Teddy Roosevelt will go to war with him. You can play the different leaders off against each other once you know the agendas. So it's a very tricky diplomatic puzzle game that you have to play, where you could be pulling strings behind the scenes and getting the diplomacy going, which makes for a very interesting game. And it's different every time as well, because you don't, assuming you roll randomly for which leaders are in your game, and even then even if you set up the leaders, then you don't know who's going to start where. It makes for very interesting situations that come up, and they're not the same each time.
Okay. What are your plans for new players? Because I think the Civilization series gets complexer every time. So, do you got any new plans for tutorials or make it easier for new players?
Right. We have tutorials that are very, very detailed. Goes through step by step, and that was not on the game that you were just playing, because we knew everyone coming today had pretty good experience with the Civilization series. There were some advisors and stuff that were on. When a new player plays, they get both the tutorial to start with and the advisor system on top of that. And we also, even though some things are, like the rules are a little trickier than before, like how to place your districts and get bonuses out of that, we've come up with new user interface tools so that when you decide I want to place a campus, the game will change into a mode where you can see the bonus on every single tile. You don't have to know the rules on how those are computed, because hopefully we can just show that to you and it can be very clear what the choice is. But an advanced player will want to learn those rules. Those really, the people that are up on the forums and the big fans, they'll learn those rules so that when they can just like scout the map and figure out where to settle the city, they'll be able to, maximize exactly what their bonuses probably are.
I still got one last question.
Sure.
What's your favorite part, or maybe your favorite section of the game, like your favorite
time period?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have a whole new spy system, an espionage, and I worked a lot on that. And spies now go on missions, and they, because the cities are unstacked, we have all the different districts around each city. So spies don't just go to a city to do something, they go to a specific district. So they're going to go steal science plans from your campus, or they're going to go steal, sabotage production in your industrial zone. So they have different targets. That part of the game doesn't really come online until maybe the industrial era and then beyond. But I love the fact that that's got a whole new level of, interesting things going on. So that's a very fun part of the game.
Yeah, sounds great. So thanks for taking the time, and I really enjoyed playing the game.
Great, glad you liked it.